We are live. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the BAMF Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty. And here in the BAMF Podcast, this Mandalorian Monday, it's the last Mandalorian Monday, where we are talking about...
At least for the season.
At least for the season, yeah. Hey, there is Joe, right on time. Joe, how you doing?
Greetings. How you doing?
Hey, doing all right. It's just the three of us. I see you are rocking some Rebel gear today.
I'm actually rocking Rebel gear every day. It's just that you don't get to see it. The only question is how many Starbirds are on my person at any given time.
What is the count for today?
2, which is the bare minimum. There's this one in my tattoo.
Cool.
But now, having learned in the finale that the Alderaanians are using them as a mark, I love that. If I was 18 and dumb again, I would totally get that tattoo.
Yeah, it was cool. All right, lot to talk about. Big ass spoilers alert right here, right now. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Because we're going to talk about everything that happened.
You're going to be spoiled
you're going to be spoiled. So if somehow you've been in a coma for the last 7 days, you haven't seen it.
Yo, and you don't want to be spoiled on this of all things. This is one of those things that you want to go into. Like I saw when I first saw it, I was thinking that, the fans out there that are losing their heads over this, it is such a gift to them that nothing got out beforehand. They had Mark Hamill on set doing a cameo, and nobody had shit on. There was no tremor. There were no tremors. I didn't hear any rumors. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing that pulled off because no one can keep a secret these days.
Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. All right. So if you haven't seen it, fuck off now. If you did see it, just set the scene. They storm an Imperial cruiser because somehow he tells Moff Gideon, "I'm coming to get you, sucker." And Moff Gideon hangs out, doesn't go anywhere. And they show up a few hours or a day or two later, having hijacked an Imperial shuttle. They fight their way and blast their way through, and get to the last scene. Imperial Cylons are getting ready to attack them, and it's going to be the end. This is the siege at the Alamo. They're going to die bravely, doing the right thing, but they're going to die. And then who shows up in a lone Skywalker? Lone X-wing, but Luke Skywalker. I know.
I believe that's called a Freudian slip.
Yeah, it's a horrible malapropism. And he shows up and basically does his dad scene from the end of Rogue One. Just takes out a whole platoon of Imperial death machines. And it was Mark Hamill's image, digitally altered. And they had someone else doing, all the sword fighting. So he looks more like Mark Hamill in the 80s. And hey, joining us is Starfinder developer Jason Chandra. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody?
I'm all right. I got to say, I love your Richard Dreyfuss cosplay more every day, buddy. I'm sorry.
I show up here. I love you. I say nice things about all you people, and then you bust my chops.
Richard Dreyfuss is a godsend blessing to the world. He has given us Jaws. He has given us Mr. Holland's Opus. He has given us amazing movies.
All right.
There are two things I remember about Richard Dreyfuss. One is Jaws, and the other one is something about somebody asked him, "Are you decent?" And they walk into the room, and he's like stark naked. And they're like, "What?" And he's like, "You asked if I was decent, not if I was wearing clothes." And I don't even know what movie that scene is from. It's like the only other thing I remember that's not Jaws.
It was a New York City set rom-com, late 70s, early 80s. And
I believe that was Goodbye Girl.
Yeah. Jason runs Space Force on the weekends in the BAMF podcast. We talk about Star Trek, specifically Star Trek Discovery right now, but they've done some other stuff. And just going to put this out there. Jason doesn't like this episode so much.
Well, he's entitled to his opinion, no matter how wrong he is,
and no matter how objectively wrong I am. That's right.
Well, no, I was talking to your point on Twitter earlier today was that you thought last season of Mando was about serving the story.
Well,
it was about servicing the franchise.
Well,
and I just want to say I didn't like that, but the more I thought about it, I was like, well, I can't really substantively argue against that because there's been a shitload of fan service and a lot of things that were set up just to be spin-offs. So
now, to be fair, that was actually Jim's observation. Jim Seals, my
okay.
co-host. And I don't want to derail us. Are we still like talking about the episode here? I don't want to interrupt anybody if they were in the middle of something.
Forgive me. I guess I was getting ahead of myself. Jacob and Joe, let's talk about the episode a little bit before we start getting into the meta-analysis. So, Joe,
now I'm analyzing.
Well, I mean, just to get back to focusing on the episode,
I don't like the term fan service, much like I don't like the term Mary Sue, because they are internet terms that people that don't have real experience in criticism use, and they become so broadly defined that they're meaningless. They're simply things that they're buzzwords. Fan service. This show has been consistently a showcase of characters. I can go back to season 1 and tell you, okay, this episode's about Cara Dune. She's a badass. This episode about Din Djarin. He's a badass. And then season 2, this episode's about Cobb Vanth. He's a badass. This episode's about Boba Fett. On and on and on. You go right down the list. It's all about character showcase. And yeah, there were problems with this episode. I had a lot of problems, especially during the storming the cruiser sequence. But my thing with it is, in order to love Star Wars, you have to love it for the flaws. You can't love it in spite of the flaws. If you love it in spite of the flaws, you're going to spend your whole time being pissed off at it. And that's no fun for anybody. You look at it and you recognize the language of the storytelling. Verisimilitude is not high on the list of priorities.
Yeah, to speak to the episode's flaws, personally, I only had one. Because I loved the episode, I enjoyed the story, I loved the cameos, all of that. It brought me to tears, it took my breath away, literally. My one issue with this episode was the attempted passing of the Darksaber, and the fact that Bo-Katan would not take it, and their excuse of why she wouldn't take it, and that is utter bullshit.
Yep, especially since it was completely public, which you did the first time.
Yeah, the very first time we see the sword passed in Star Wars Rebels. It's passed non-violently. And so we know it's allowed. So what is the problem here?
So I've been dwelling on that because that was something that was a question that raised in my mind as well. And I rewatched the relevant episode of Rebels where Sabine hands it off, and it's not a subtle thing. Like, they're not like, hey, under the table, you take this and we'll just not. No, yeah. The heads of the clans are there, and it's like a ceremony and shit.
Yeah.
So, I think what might be happening is more about Bo-Katan than the culture at large. Because if Bo-Katan gets it again, not in combat, she may be questioning her own legitimacy as ruler of the Mandalorians. And I think the Darksaber is telling her something. I think she's not destined. She's not the Mandalore. She may be the leader that Mandalore needs, but she is not the Mandalore, which is a different thing. The Mandalore is the war leader of Mandalorians. The leader of Mandalorians as a government can be a different thing, and I don't think that's a distinction that she's prepared to make.
See, I'm going to suggest that if it was handled well in show, we wouldn't have to engage in theorizing to have it make sense.
Yeah, that's ultimately my issue. We shouldn't have to theorize about this. We know it can be passed. There should be no issues here.
So, Star Wars Cylons, who liked him, who hated him?
Say that again?
Star Wars and Cylons, who liked him, who didn't care for him?
I liked the Dark Troopers. I thought they were very cool. And, being one of the people who played the old Dark Forces game when they showed up, this was really, really awesome.
The scene with the Dark Trooper bashing Mando's helmet into the wall was scary. Like it was very tightly done. And because we've established in the setting that the armor is essentially indestructible. Right? Like he gets hurt when he gets shot, but it's more like bruising, right? Like so it's hard to really convey danger to Mando now because he's so encased in this armor. Like they have to work it to show that, and this was a great way of showing that. Like they showed him getting the shit beat out of his head, and we really worried for him, which is not easy to do.
It doesn't happen every episode, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I liked it. It was well done.
Well, and they find different ways to do that too. If you go back to the last episode, they took him out of the armor and gave him the crappy stormtrooper armor, and made a point when he was fighting that this armor sucks.
That's actually a great silent physical thing about that episode, which, by the way, is my favorite episode in this season. When he gets hit because he's trying to deflect a melee attack with his arm bracer, and he out of habit because that's how he fights. And then the bracer breaks from the gaffy stick or whatever those guys have, and it makes perfect sense in the way that they choreographed it. There's another great example from earlier in this season when he's with Bo-Katan in her opening appearance, and he does that bit with the grenades, right, where he like charges out in front, and the stormtroopers are shooting him, and he's clearly hurting from all those blaster bolts hitting him. But he lives because he's in the armor. It's well done. This is physical acting, and it's hard.
But the same sort of thing. Yeah. Okay, so if I were inclined to nitpick that scene, I would say, okay, why is the Mandalorian special that he can go and take all that fire, but the other people in Mandalorian armor aren't? Well, and there's an answer for that. The answer is the other people's Mandalorian armor is an alloy of Beskar, and the Mandalorian's armor is pure Beskar, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't do the reading.
The answer is in the episode when she acknowledges his courage. The other characters not run out there and throw grenades because they were fucking scared, and Mando was not. I never needed a technical answer to that question. Mando was braver than they were, and that's the answer.
It's I mean there's been a lot of nods to lots of things, Kurosawa and the old spaghetti westerns, and in a lot of ways he kind of has seemed like Clint Eastwood in those old 70s westerns in this. And the moment when you can see he's in danger, because in those movies, I mean, Clint Eastwood's almost an elemental force, except for once or twice, when that's when the stakes are high, when he's in danger or threatened in some way.
Yeah.
Hell, in some of those movies, he dies before the movies and comes back as a force of vengeance.
That's right. But I don't know how long we want to go here, so I kind of want to jump in and kind of give my read on this episode, if I may, for a minute.
Go.
So, for one thing, I want to start off like when you first had me on. I think I made some sort of downer feel for this. I enjoy this series. I love watching it. I look forward to it every week. I tune in every Friday night. I get a Twitter alert when the new Mando episode drops. Like, I'm there, okay? And Joe, I have to say, I'm not a fan of being told what I have to do if I want to love Star Wars. Like, you were like, if you love Star Wars, you have to love it this way. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna love Star Wars whether you give me permission or not. But let's get to the episode. I loved it when I saw Luke in his with his gloved hand. Like, I was freaking out as much as everybody. Like, I was sitting up saying, "Holy shit, it's Luke Skywalker!" Like, I get that, and I love that moment. But I've been disappointed with this season and with the episode in particular, especially when I look back and compare it to season 1. The last couple of episodes in season 1 were really incredibly well written and directed. Like, Taika Waititi did a fantastic job with those episodes. And two people died in that thing, right? Like I don't even know their names, but you know who I'm talking about. Like, this is the way I have spoken guy, right? The Ugnaught and the IG robot.
Cool.
Yeah.
IG-11.
Two people that we had never met before in the Star Wars galaxy. Two people that we met in this season, and their performances and their writing was so good that we cared so much about them in just a very short time. And when they finally die, they die so tragically in the case of the Ugnaught guy, and so heroically in the case of the IG robot. Like, that was fucking good Star Wars. Like, I could watch those 2 episodes just on endless repeat, right? And the bit with him taking off his helmet and the whole bit that was so tightly done. But in this season, for one thing, well, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but instead of giving us the characters that we have met in this season, we're rescued. We're getting all instead of when I watched the first season of Mandalorian, I thought this was a show about all of the nobodies in the Star Wars galaxy, all the people that we had never met before, all the people that live on the tiny little corners of the galaxy. This season, that's not what we're getting. We've got Ahsoka Tano, and we've got Bo-Katan, and we've got Luke Skywalker and Boba Fett, and now suddenly it's a different show. It's a show that's bringing in all of these elements from the Star Wars galaxy that we already know. It's not a show about anonymous, no-name people anymore. The little guy, living in his little corner of the galaxy. It's a show about this greater Star Wars canon. That's an okay show, but it's not the show that the first season told me I was getting. I watched the whole first season, and then it kind of changed. The series has changed. It's a different show now, especially now that Baby Yoda is gone. And I know he's got a name, but I grew up calling him Baby Yoda, and,
Everyone still calls him Baby Yoda, trust me.
Okay, look, can you see him? Like, I've got a little Baby Yoda on my bookshelf back there, man. Like, I'm a Baby Yoda stan.
I get what you're saying.
And the fact that they handed off Baby Yoda at the end of season 2 just goes to show us this show never really knew what they were going to do with him in the first place. Like,
I disagree.
Yeah, strong disagree.
I disagree. I had a feeling as they started to introduce more major characters that we might see more major characters, but ultimately the story isn't about those major characters. It's about the Mandalorian, and it's not called the Mandalorian and the child. It's just the Mandalorian.
I think you're misevaluating
story.
I think you're misevaluating who the Mandalorian is.
Well, I think we'll all find out for sure next season. I think we can theorize about it.
Mando has the Darksaber now. He's going to be a major. His role in the Star Wars galaxy is getting bigger every season.
Right, but that was bound to happen. He was a star of his own show.
No, it's not bound to happen. It's a writing choice. It's a writing choice. They didn't have to do that.
I think after it was so successful, you knew that they were going to, it's a cultural phenomenon now. It's just not.
And in any case, I don't think Din Djarin is the Mandalorian of the title. I think the Mandalorian of the title is Grogu.
Oh, that's fun.
You're going to have a little green dude in Beskar armor running around by the end of the story. I will say the end result.
I would bet a shiny silver dollar they get reunited after a time jump, prior to season 3, because you have to get Grogu, Baby Yoda, has to get out of Luke's Jedi Academy before Kylo Ben Solo does his thing.
Right, but there's 30 years to do that. They got plenty of time to do it now.
Well, yeah, that's why I think there's going to be a time jump. I could be wrong. I think we have a decade or 2 time jump, and then we establish where things are. But
none of those things are happening, guys. You will owe me $20 next year. There's no time jump, and Grogu is nowhere in season 3.
Can I send it to you in quarters?
Yeah, yes, I'll take that in quarters.
Like we talked about last episode, I don't like to speculate about episodes or where the show is going.
Yeah.
I just want to watch it as it happens, and I got everything I wanted out of this episode.
That's cool.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I love the siege.
Yeah.
I love how they introduced Luke.
Sure.
Because when the scene happened, it's a single X-wing. And and my initial thought is, okay, it's a scout X-wing before it calls in like a rebel fleet, and a rebel fleet comes, and we're going to have a nice battle between a whole bunch of rebel soldiers and the troopers, and it'll be this really cool, awesome battle. And then, oh no, the X-wing is landing, and I'm what? It's landing. Yeah. Who do we know that has an X-wing?
Right.
And then we see the cloak.
Yeah.
And we're like, are they doing this? And
There.
then we see the lightsaber in black and white. Are they doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we see the color of the lightsaber, and it's green. And then we see the gloved hand.
Yeah.
And then we see him spin, and it's the black Jedi clothing.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew it wasn't Wedge. Up to that point, I wasn't positive.
No, I was already screaming. As soon as I saw
him.
As soon as I saw that X-wing, I was screaming at my screen. Tell me that's red fucking 5. Tell me that's red fucking 5. My dogs were looking at my computer like, you fucked up.
Hey, Paul Malco of Union City Heroes has joined us. How you doing, Paul?
Yeah, the Banff equivalent of a lone X-wing coming in the last 10 minutes of this
Last
thing.
10 minutes, to change the plot. Very good, nice.
So yeah, and it's just the power of how they introduced him, the way they did it. It was so amazing.
Ultimately, I think that what you're saying, Jake, what I hear from you, Jacob, and what Joe, I think you too, of fans of the show, fans of Star Wars, fans of Luke, for 30 years we've wanted this scene. Like
Yes.
I remember fans saying, I just want Luke to be a bad. I myself said, look, I don't care if you kill Luke off in the movies. Just give me one scene where he's a total badass, right? And then you can kill him off. And I got that. I was totally happy with Last Jedi. Like I know it throws a lot of people for a loop, but I continue to love that film. And this scene was in many ways that. It was what people have been asking for a long time.
It makes no sense to talk about I need a scene with Luke Skywalker as a badass. There are whole movies devoted to Luke Skywalker as a badass.
Well,
There's the end of Empire, the end of Jedi, the beginning of Jedi, where he mows down a bunch of mokes.
I really wanted after Jedi. I was built up to think this was going to be an action movie conclusion, and that's what I was looking for. And instead, and I give him props. I know what they're going for. It didn't quite pay off for me. He throws out his sword and says, "Dad, come back to me. You don't have to be like this." And I get what they were going for. As a 12-year-old kid, it didn't quite land for me. And I was hoping for a sequel trilogy from that moment on, because I wanted to see, the Timothy Zahn novels on the screen. I wanted to see Luke as a full-fledged Jedi doing his thing. And this kind of paid off that hope for me. So
see, I love that moment in the Jedi when Luke throws his lightsaber away, and because it denies the audience what they think they want, and gives them something that they didn't know they really wanted. At least for me,
it worked for a lot of people. I'm just saying it didn't work, for me.
And this end of the Mandalorian episode also had a nice kind of reference to Rogue One and that Vader scene at the end, where it's him unleashed. You see very little of him, but you see everything you want to: the swinging of the lightsaber, the using of the Force, just going through all these goons, or a challenge that would destroy most of our other heroes. That for a Jedi is nothing.
We saw how much problem Din had with one of those things.
And for Luke Skywalker, finally full Jedi, because before you
guys are gamers. This is a level 8 or 10 character versus a level 16 character running through the encounter. Like, why are we rolling this out?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Luke's player was looking at his GM like, why are we rolling dice for this?
Exactly.
Yeah, Mike, that side by side was striking the moment of the door opening, and that same silhouette. There's the lightsaber. You know what's going down.
There's another good one too. There's a parallel between Din and taking his helmet off, and the scene between him and Grogu, and then the end of Jedi with Vader taking his mask off and Luke.
And
the camera angles.
That 2 minutes with Mando taking off his helmet and Grogu kind of touching his face. Pascal is working his ass off in that scene. He's really, because he's got to struggle to convey so much with so little. That is maybe the best moment for me in that episode is that 30 seconds with him and Grogu.
Yeah.
To get back to your gaming metaphor, the problem is that Luke Skywalker either is an NPC in this campaign because he only shows up for 10 minutes, or he's a guest player that comes in just to play one episode, in which case the players at the table are all like, why the fuck did we just get saved by an NPC?
No, yeah, he's definitely a legacy NPC. I'm currently running a D&D game that's like the second generation. Like we had a game and they made it to level 20 and they did their big campaign, and we're now playing the next generation of heroes. Yeah. And Luke Skywalker was the guy from the first campaign that came in to whoop some ass, and everybody goes, "Oh, cool, he's here." And then
maybe they said that, or maybe they said, "Gosh, it's my game. I kind of wish I could have won on my own."
Yeah, but it was. I feel like that crew had their victories, especially Din, especially the Mandalorian, like him fighting Moff Gideon, him fighting the droid, and jettisoning all the other ones. Yeah. Like I really feel like he had his big palpable victories, and so the last thing with Luke was more like, oh man, they're in this like Helm's Deep situation. What happens now that they've given it all? And cavalry.
I agree with you. I think Mando's conflict with Moff Gideon was well done. I think he earned his part of that story.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the other characters were ever actually in danger. They shot so many people without even putting up a sweat. The biggest obstacle they had is when Cara Dune's gun jammed. Like, okay, that's our high stress moment. I found that part unearned.
Yeah, I would during that assault, I would have killed all of them. Like, just as a storyteller, just if I were writing the series, I would have killed every single one on that team. But hey, that's what they did.
This is where I fess up to me being wrong. A couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I started speculating, when we found out that they were going to be recruiting MiGs for this mission, for somehow, like it was episode 6, right? Like, so the end of that episode has him talking to Cara Dune. We've got Boba Fett, we've got Fennec Shand, and say, okay, we got to go get MiGs. And okay, it's going to be the Magnificent Seven. There's going to be 7 characters. They're going to go in there. 3 of them are going to get killed by the Dark Troopers because 3 people died in the Magnificent Seven, right? And they all get shot. None of them get killed by spear-wielding dudes. They all get shot by muskets, which it becomes the Dark Troopers of this episode, right? And I was like, okay, clearly this is what's going to happen. Well, ultimately, they did have 7 if you count Luke. Luke is the 7th guy on that team. And so they did kind of do the Magnificent Seven run, but nobody else dies. I think narratively wise, that's because they wanted the focus of Lost to be on Grogu, right? The fact that if anybody died, it would have seemed like, well, now how do we treat that as more important than losing Grogu or less important than losing Grogu? And either one of those questions has no good answer, right? Yeah. So they just didn't kill anybody. But it meant that nobody was in any danger. Look, if you're Moff Gideon and you get a pistol, why do you not shoot one of the 2 people in the room that aren't wearing Beskar armor? There's only 2 people in the room that you can kill. You can either kill Cara Dune or you can kill Fennec Shand. And instead, he shoots somebody in Mandalorian armor, and of course, he does nothing. It was, yeah.
It's performance anxiety. You get a gun, it's a tense situation. It's going to happen.
Well, and he had made a couple questionable decisions. Why, when he's in the cell, why surrender? Or why not surrender? Why go after him with the Darksaber, especially since he's swinging at the armor? He had him. He had him in a surprise attack and bent over. That's the best swing you're going to get at that neckline. And he hit the jetpack. So, like, what are you doing there? He should have just given up, and it would have changed nothing as far as the outcome is concerned.
I like Jon Favreau a lot. Swingers is a great movie.
Yep.
Iron Man 1 is a great movie.
For sure.
I like this episode, but there were moments and scenes like that where I'm reminded that while they were filming Iron Man 1, every morning Robert Downey Jr. would get his pages, He would cuss loudly in his trailer, storm over to Jon Favreau's trailer, take the pages he'd been given, throw them in the trash, and say, "This is bullshit. We're rewriting today's scenes. We're rewriting them right now."
But there was a lot of stuff that the cold open with the Imperial shuttle.
That was great.
And
I love that.
So many things in that one scene. The Imperial being just sneeringly evil about blowing up Alderaan and getting the in perspective of there were millions on those bases and the galaxy cheered, and how it subtly tees up Luke at the end because they're talking about DS1 and that's Luke's gig. Like they're talking about Luke the terrorist. So
yeah, it was a good episode. I liked it. I'm just saying there's a few moments like the one you mentioned with Moff Gideon and the lightsaber. I'm like, why'd they do that? Okay, it serves the story in a clunky way. That's why they're doing that. But maybe there was a way they could have done that a little more elegantly. But I mean, ultimately, I think the formula that Lucas had back, well, Lucas and his co-writers and his editor had for, Episode 4, The New Hope, and that you saw Jon Favreau have in the early Marvel movies, where you have elements of the fantastic, but you ground it in human emotion.
Right.
So it lands better. I think that was the formula we saw on display here, and arguably several of the episodes of this season. You got some of that. I still like the premiere episode of this season with the Crate Dragon, probably the best, just because it was a lot of fun. But,
I was thinking about that episode earlier, and again, how it tees up Luke at the end of the episode, at the end of the season.
Yeah,
there's a reason they started on Tatooine.
The Migs episode. Episode 7 is my favorite, no question, because it's a beautifully self-contained story. Migs has a clear story arc. He starts off one way and he's changed by the end, and it forces Mando to make difficult decisions. And the actor who plays Migs is just so damn good.
I thank you for reminding me. His first name was Migs. I've just been calling him Mayfeld, or the dude from Space Boston.
Yeah, Space Boston. That's right, Boston. Yeah,
I was just assume he's a Corellian with that accent.
But that was my favorite. I thought that it was super well done. The characters were in danger all the time.
It's arguably a low stakes story, but yeah, and you take someone who's completely unsympathetic. I mean, Mayfeld, when you first saw him, you just thought he was a bastard, and you give him you make him empathetic to some degree. If you ever get a chance, Bill Burke did this terrible set when he was a stand-up comedian in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
You guys have heard about this? It was a show that was just going terribly. It was a bad Philly crowd. They just drunk, angry crowd. It was a showcase, like 12 comics on stage, and Opie and Anthony promotional thing, and they were just booing everybody out there. Everyone's just doing like 4 minutes and walking the heck away.
Yeah. Bill
did all of his time, did all 15 minutes, got out there and was just cussing the crowd out, telling them, "Oh, the Eagles suck. Every bad thing you can say about Philadelphia, he was saying it. You guys couldn't appreciate Joe Louis because he was black, so you built a statue to a fictional boxer in your city. What's wrong with you losers?" And about 100 other things. And it's at the end, there's a few people on his side if you listen to the audio. But yeah, it's having done some stand-up comedy, it's usually you have a bad crowd, you just want to tap out, but this dude just went the distance. Yes, Joe, you were saying
that's a critical success on a performance check. We've all seen that shit happen. That's a bard whose dice liked him.
That's great.
Yeah, he got to spend some action points that day. Hey, look, RPG reference. It all ties back together.
That's right.
So all right. Well, hey, we've hit the half hour, and my kid keeps hopping into the room wanting me to go do dad stuff with him, so I should tap out. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Any closing thoughts? Paul, I know you showed up a little bit late.
No, I'll just take Grogu for next season, and I'll peace out of here.
All right. Hey, so am I the only person who wants to see an original trilogy, even animated show with Luke and Han and Leia again? Does anybody else have an appetite for that?
Honestly, no. I would. We've seen their story, and while I am still interested in them as characters, I feel that other characters should take the spotlight.
All right, fair enough. Joe, any closing thoughts, Joe?
I mean, season 3 of The Mandalorian is going to be fun, but that's not the biggest thing on my Star Wars radar at the moment. That orgasm of new material that came out of Disney just recently had so much to be hyped for. especially with my personal obsession project, which is the Rogue Squadron movie. I've said for years that ever since X-Wing Alliance came out, Star Wars fans ask, if they gave you the magic wand, what Star Wars would you make? And I always said I would remake Top Gun, but I would call it Rogue Squadron. Yeah. And it looks like they're going to do that. And I'm really excited for that.
I met Aaron Alston once, the writer of the Rogue Squadron novels. I met him one time, and he gave me some of the best writer's advice I'd ever gotten. He was a personal role model for me. His work in the gaming industry changed the way we write and read role-playing games. I just wish he was still alive to see a film made by an amazing director of his books and his characters. He would love that. I wish that he could see that.
Yeah. Well, it is a new story, so it's not clear that his they'll definitely be doing riffs on his stuff in the same way Mando's doing riffs on the old EU,
right, for sure.
But it is an endorsement of how good a time it is to be a Star Wars fan that season 3 of this outstanding series isn't even the top thing on my hype list.
Right.
Can I know I said I want to get now. What was Aaron Alston's advice? Short and pithy, and you can say it in 30 seconds, or is it more than that?
So I was telling Aaron that I have all these things I'm working on. I have all these ideas that I'm writing. He said, well, until you have a manuscript, you've got nothing. Meaning you have to finish something. Yep. Until you write the end, you've got nothing.
Yep. This is true. All right. That's, hey, a little bit of wisdom in this week's Mando Monday. Not a bad way to end things. Thanks for joining, Jason. Always appreciate you making time for us. And folks, you should check out Space Force. That is Sunday nights on BAMF Podcast.
Yeah, and I also do my developer diary for Starfinder Adventure Pack. Like every few weeks, I go into one of the adventures that I've just got finished developing, and we do like a director's commentary on it, and we talk about how it got made and what I learned and what maybe didn't work as well as I wanted it to, and kind of a little behind the scenes if you're interested in game design or game development.
Episode 2 of that was just released, I want to say last week. We've got it up on YouTube, and it should be on iTunes very shortly. So we have it on Podbean. So all right, cool. Well, hey, thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks to all of our listeners and viewers out there. And this is the final Mando Monday because the show is over, and we will see you again. Wipe that tear away, Jason. We'll be seeing you again next year, although I suspect we might have a few more of these shows to cover the Book of Boba Fett, and I'm not sure what all Star Wars shows are coming out in 2021. Does anyone know?
Yeah, in addition to the list that they did, the Book of Boba Fett is its own series. There was some confusion about whether it was going to be season 3 Mandalorian Book of Boba Fett or a new series, but it is going to be its own thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So Q3, Q4, we're gonna have both Mando and Boba Fett. So it's I'm really liking this whole Star Wars around Christmas kind of vibe. It's a cool thing. So all right, once again,
Happy Life Day.
Happy Life Day.
Okay. And just like this last episode of Mandalorian, we've had like the longest goodbye ever. So thanks everybody for watching. We will catch you next time.